6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Michelle Lewis is excused tonight. She is away. All the board members are present. First up, we have the November 13th public meeting minutes. Any edits to those?
Line 110, I would have liked to have seen, you guys had a discussion about fixing the current grading, 4-point grading system, and all this was discussion ensued. I would like to see a little expansion of that.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has feedback on what that would be expanded to. I mean, there was a lot of conversation about it, but.
We all pretty much said that if we can fix it, that we were okay. So we kind of, we have to see where it plays out.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as presented, or are we changing? Okay.
Second.
Second from Alice. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Abstentions. All right, next meeting is December 5th at Canterbury Elementary School. I believe the 5th is a budget workshop specifically, and then the 12th is a regular board meeting. The next time we're together is the 5th. Public communication and correspondence. All right. Moving on to board reports. I'll start with, Jill, you have anything?
Nope.
Mark?
It appears that the Satin Club has started early this year. I guess they have a few trees and sap lines and stuff they're gonna run. So my kids are involved in that and are all sorts of excited that that's happening early this year. So I think it's supposed to start next week.
Mark, is that middle school
Yes.
only, or?
I'm assuming it's just middle school. I don't think they do anything at the high school.
No.
No.
For the withdrawal study, I attended the Canterbury Selectmen's meeting on November 20th and provided them kind of an update on the process of where we are and what happens next. I have been following up with the State Board of Education to confirm that we are on the December 14th agenda and was notified yesterday that we are not. There is some questions being asked among that office about if they still need to review these things. So I am supposed to hear back from them by the end of the week. However, the law states that this can go no further without their approval. And I did contact Will Phillips to confirm with him.
Randy, that's the state.
Board of
Board of
Education.
Education.
Did I hear you say there's questions as whether they have?
If they need to review these anymore.
Typical.
I would be concerned if they don't.
Literally says they have to, in 19529.
I-
Says that they have to.
So she patched me through to the attorney who could not speak with me. She said she would call me back by Friday. So that's where we're at.
Okay. New business. We have snow removal bids. I want to take the lead on that.
Sure. Either one of us.
Go ahead.
Our only bidder was GMI, and they came in with, in your packet, $800 per storm for 1 to 6 inches, and well, we'll say 1,200, round it up a little. It's 1165, and then 15, for anything 12 plus is 1530 per storm. So it hasn't really changed from last year that much.
Right, we did a 2-year contract the last time.
And I think we should go with a 2-year contract again, if everybody agrees.
If I'm reading this correctly, it is less expensive to do a 2-year than a 3-year?
Correct.
Yep.
And less expensive to do a 2-year than a 1-year?
Yes.
Yes.
And who determines the inches for accumulation? Just curious, like how,
That's up to plow company.
They go by the National Weather Report for,
Yeah.
I mean, for New Hampshire and what the reported snowfall is per storm.
And when do they come in and do drops? I mean, and do we have a minimum? I mean, are we at 2 inches before they come, or 1 inch, or are they coming at a half an inch? Or?
Just, I haven't talked to them, you guys are at the school more than I am. I'm always out somewhere else. But when I've seen snow days and I've gone by in the morning to go to work and everybody has canceled, it's already been passed by at least once. And I mean, last time I saw it was like, I think maybe 2 inches on the ground, and it was already cleared. So I think they're pretty much on it.
Yeah, I mean, they're offering loader work at $100 an hour.
That's when
I
we
think
need the
that's-
Bankins, that's when we need the Bankins
I
pushed
know,
back
but
and hauled off.
that's pretty reasonable price right there,
Yeah.
at $100 an hour.
And billing is just done per storm?
They bill us at the end of the month for the number of storms during that month.
The only question I asked Jeff was, the 2 years seems to make the most sense, but could we get, would the 3-year make sense if we could expect increases 3 years from now? Where maybe the 3-year is actually a better option to jump on now, but it didn't sound like that was really worth it. And it could go down, who knows?
Right. Yeah, and the 3-year contract, obviously, then you're paying more for the first 2 years anyway.
Yeah.
motion to award the snowplow bid to GMI?
Second.
Further discussion, questions?
Are we doing the 1, 2, or 3?
Oh, for a 2-year contract.
I heard that. All right, all those in favor of the motion, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And next up is a Huot Regional Agreement.
Yeah, this is for information only. I included some information in your packet for you. You'll see that we, as a regional advisory board, had to revise the current agreement based on new legislation that passed during the 21-22 legislative session. So I made sure that I provided a technical advisory around that new legislation, as well as a summary sheet of the changes. And just looking for this board to offer any feedback at this point that I can bring back to the regional advisory board. You do?
I do.
Okay.
Sorry,
That's
everyone. So the main thing that stuck out to me was there was a question surrounding item number 10. And the question was, is this the name as item number 7? And ultimately, no, it is not. Number 10 deals with maintenance of items rather than the initial purchase.
Okay.
So if we take out number 10, maintenance isn't discussed anywhere else in this contract. I read it twice. So essentially, without that, Laconia could say, oh, that blood pressure cuff for your nursing class is broken. I'm sorry, go buy a new one. So the maintenance would ensure that those things are kept up.
So
And-
keep 10 in there?
Yes.
Is there any projection as to what the impact is going to be for student numbers by adding the additional district and availability for Belmont students?
There hasn't been a forecast because it varies each year. When we met as a regional advisory board, I believe it was 2 years ago, to discuss adding Newfound to our regional agreement. We actually gave it a trial 2 years to see what the impact might be on the formula, and it did not have an impact on the sense that we weren't able to fill our seats with any of the other districts that were part of the region by adding Newfound. Okay.
My other question was, has there been any discussion when you're piloting the stuff within the advisory board for Belmont to basically add an offering, just like Winnisquam has, to the curriculum or program of offerings and programs within that, under that umbrella?
We actually discuss that every year as to what the potential might be for new offerings based on student interest. And what it comes down to is if we have students that are interested in a specific program, we discuss that as an advisory board. We might add the program. The difficult piece is finding staff to fill the position, the teaching position for those new programs. And we have a fairly robust CTE program in the region, which includes Concord, Winnisquam, and Huot. So we have students that access any of those centers if the Huot doesn't provide that program.
So there's not a big driving need to add something into that.
Most of my other notes are grammatical.
Okay.
I
Can you send those to me?
Yes.
That'd be great.
And then just to clarify, because I know you mentioned Concord, that this agreement is separate and students are still allowed to go to Concord.
Yes, if you're part of a regional agreement and your CTE center doesn't offer a program, students have access to any other CTE center in the state within a reasonable distance. Like fire safety is not offered at Huot, but we have students that are participating in that in Concord.
On your advisory board, was there any discussion about the 4-year, I think it's a 4-year agreement versus, versus the 20, and are we seeing any concerns, with that, or?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not
So
at all.
what was the reason for the 4-year?
The change in legislation. No, we don't see a problem with it at all.
Okay. Any questions?
Alice, if you could send me those edits, because I have to get this back over to the director tomorrow.
Yep, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Of course.
Anything else? So this is gonna be up for action, I assume, the second meeting, well, our first regular board
Yep,
meeting.
December 12th.
December.
It'll just be a motion to authorize Michelle as the chair to sign the agreement. Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. And last, under new business is kitchen equipment retained fund balance.
So I provided a report in your board packet. We had 2 pieces of equipment that are essential for preparing meals go down, and of course, we don't have an expendable trust fund for kitchen equipment, and the only way that we will be able to get these replaced is by using retained fund balance. So I'm presenting a request to the board to hold a public hearing and use retained fund balance to purchase kitchen equipment.
Motion to schedule a public hearing regarding utilizing $85,000 of retained fund balance for kitchen equipment.
Second. Discussion. One question would be, I know we're still relatively early in the fiscal year, but this is not something our 23-24 budget could cover.
I don't think so, because we don't have the same level of open positions that are going to generate a huge fund balance.
Because I personally don't have a problem with transferring funds to a different line item within a fiscal year if something pops up.
Yeah, but just because
you
you have the public hearing, you don't have to use the retained. You're just gonna be authorizing up to a certain amount from retained fund balance. So if we find at the end of the year that you don't have to use that, we wouldn't have to. But it's just, this way we know that we will be able to replace this equipment and get through the year.
And it needs to be replaced immediately.
They're not working, right? One is actually truly a safety issue, the door blew open while they were trying to prepare food. And if somebody had been standing there, it could have been very dangerous.
Other questions? All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Buildings and grounds report, if we had something in the packet. Are there questions? That Michael or Debbie could attempt to answer.
These are all things that we had already budgeted for, correct?
Yes.
Or received grants for. Yep. He is hoping that you will go look at the Bryant Field work because he's very, very happy with how that came out.
Drove by it yesterday.
This isn't in there, but are the cafeteria tables scheduled or something?
There's been a delay in the delivery, but we expect them within, I think, the next 3 weeks.
Okay.
So they're gonna have to work on a weekend to get those out and installed.
So, can you refresh my memory what we were planning to install?
We had hoped that they were gonna be here over Thanksgiving,
Oh.
and then we got
For some reason I had it in my head.
yeah, and then we got the notice that there was a delay by a week or two.
And are we doing both elementary schools or?
Yes.
I just couldn't remember if we were doing it.
Yeah.
So then just installation then be kicked out till Christmas break, or?
No, we
Are
wanna
you
get
talking
that,
about
no,
weekend?
because while they're here, they gotta pull out the old tables so we can put them in the dumpster, and then they've gotta put the new tables in. So, we're trying to get it, so it may be on a Friday, that one of the schools may have to eat in their classrooms, while they do that work, and then we'll have the people work on Saturday and finish it up.
All right. Anything else for building and grounds? Or, yeah, buildings and grounds report. All right. Budget development. You have the floor.
So before we start diving into some of this information, I just want to go over what we have for you tonight. There's additional information for your budget development book. These are all from the requests of our last meeting. And we also have the default budget as well as the projected revenues and the impact of those revenues as well. So I'm just going to go over this, did a little cover sheet for you. So first order here is the request for the increases of non-union staff over the past 5 years. So you can see the first 3 pages, you have administrators as well as specialists and non-affiliated. So that's over the past 5 years of what those raises are. We did a total and then an average 5-year percent increase. Again, you're just getting this information tonight, so I'm assuming that there'll be more discussion around this next Tuesday when we meet to talk specifically about the budget. Because we're presenting you with a lot of information to chew on. Next is overall budget increases over the past 7 years. And we put the little title at the bottom for you so you know what each sheet represents.
Thank you.
And then there was a request to see what the surrounding salaries are for support staff. This is fairly limited the amount of information that we're able to receive because some are currently negotiating a new collective bargaining agreement and/or they just weren't available, right, Debbie? So we provided you what we could as for comparison.
That's for
Support staff, yes.
And,
Regional.
area, regional.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And some don't have the same classifications in their collective bargaining agreements.
And then the next sheet are, those are requests to see what are the required increases, contractual required increases. So you can see we included that in there. It's around $1.1 million contractual required increases. And then next is a list of all of the open vacancies, all of the vacancies that we have, so open positions in the district. One of the things that I referenced a couple board meetings ago is that this list is much smaller than it was when we discussed it in the last budget development cycle, so we're really pleased about that. I feel like the movement that the board made last year on the salary scale increases really have helped us bring in some,
I have
go
a
ahead.
question on the contractual, so we don't have any other lease agreements?
Well, the lease payments are the same, so there's not an increase to the budget because of those lease payments.
Oh, these are for increased
Right.
contractual?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Remind me on that transportation contract, that starts this year, so, or was this built into an existing contract?
So the contract ends this year.
Yeah.
We have a proposal that will be for next year.
That's what I thought.
And I have heard from the attorney that we will be able to put whatever the proposed contract is gonna be, will be in the default budget because we're required to provide the transportation.
Yeah, I get it. And this is, for this area, is that pretty much sole source, meaning there's nobody else to compare?
Yes.
And Michael, on the vacancy report, these are open positions?
Yes.
Okay.
Next, you'll see we did provide you with an updated technology CIP. There was a request for the updated building and grounds CIP. However, that needs to be discussed at the next building and grounds committee. But this is an updated tech CIP for your binder. And then there was a request for total costs for athletics as well as co-curriculars. So you can see we have one sheet that's specific to athletics, one sheet that's specific to co-curriculars. We broke that down district-wide as well as each building.
It's I'm just trying to see.
Sorry, the question is on the district-wide, I just want to make sure I understand. Is that a position, or you're
Yes.
summing something on the sheets
That's
down below?
position.
No, it was a
Okay.
position.
Athletic
It was a
director.
Oh,
No, that district-wide was the Destination Imagination.
For
Right.
co-curricular?
I'm sorry, for co-curricular. Athletics is the athletic director, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, the co-curricular was a specific activity.
okay.
They are still doing it?
We've had no interest.
Oh.
Not for years. What, 4 or 5 years? And then next, we just wanted to provide you with the fund and function list. So as you're reading through the detailed budget and/or the summary sheet, that lets you know all of the functions that we kind of highlight each function in the detail and summary.
Just when it comes to the functions, when we have the public hearings, we typically have divvied up those
Correct.
function codes.
Yep.
And then next we have our class sizes. We did the middle, BMS, BES, and CES. Those are your average class sizes. And then print out from ALMA for BHS, the average number of students in each course that's offered.
And those have been pretty stable over time, year to year?
We had a slight decline from year to year, but fairly stable. I mean, we're only talking about a handful of students here and there over the past you know, from one year to another.
Yeah, okay.
What is the blank? At the bottom, is it blank? Class size vehicles?
Which one, Heidi?
The very last line.
VHS
This is
and
space
light.
saver.
One.
Probably how that document starts out, that would be my
yeah.
guess.
I'm not sure.
And I'm assuming it's just a misprint on the BMS average class size that says grade 5, 6, 7, 9?
Yes,
Is this an eight?
sorry about that, yeah, it's 8.
This is dual, and then dual enrollment on the first page.
Mhm.
Has two separate things. What's the first one? And the teachers have dual.
Where are you, Kate? I'm not sure.
Because the numbers are different. One's 2.5, one's 3.9.
I'm sure I'll find that out.
Can we go back to the middle school and elementary school page? I just want to make sure I'm clear on how many classrooms there are for those. So, my understanding is that BES, I don't know about kindergarten, but 1 to 4 is there's 4 classrooms
Mhm.
each. At CES, there's 1 for each except for maybe 1 kindergarten.
Except for kindergarten and first grade.
Kindergarten and first grade have 2.
What's that?
Kindergarten and first grade have 2 classes this year.
2, 2, 1, 1, 1.
Mhm.
Do we know about the middle school?
So middle school, you basically took the total number of teachers by grade level. We have five teachers per,
How many teachers?
so for each grade level.
Yeah. Oh,
5.
okay. They're all 5.
So 5 pre-K, 5 kindergarten, 5 grade 1, 2.
No, he was asking about the middle school.
Oh, sorry.
5.
And how about BES?
4.
Pre-K and K?
2, 1 in pre-K, but we offered it, they're on a full day session.
Thank you.
And then next is in blue, is a revised proposed budget. This is based on the adjustments that we made from our last meeting. What were those adjustments specifically, Debbie?
So the specific adjustments from the last meeting were the teachers that submitted that they would
Track.
be having track changes, because those were due by November 15th, which was after our last meeting.
And the health insurance is,
The health insurance, we really couldn't do anything with. I mean, we're a little short, but I think we'll be able to cover that within, based on changes.
And then along with the proposed budget, we have the proposed budget revenue. Those are the next 2 blue sheets.
What's the impact of this court decision there? Is that gonna hit during this budget year, so 24-25, or does anybody know yet?
We have no idea. The state may appeal it,
Yeah.
you know, and then even if they don't appeal it, if they go through the whole, a lot of times they'll put caveats in that it will depend if it's funded.
Yeah.
So you could come up with a whole new formula. It could increase the cost per pupil, but you still may not get the money because, you know, if it's not funded, you don't get the money. Like transportation for voc ed. You know, the whole caveat is provided it's budgeted, they'll reimburse for the transportation. So it's too early to say what that impact is gonna be yet.
Okay.
They wouldn't have numbers run for this anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I realize that now, I
Yeah.
just wondered it.
Yeah, if anything happens, they'll give us revised numbers next summer, if it even goes into effect.
Okay.
The next in purple is the default budget. Draw you to page 11 of 11, of the purple default budget sheets. So you can see our default budget, the subtotal general fund is the 5.93% increase. So the difference between the proposed operating budget that we're currently working off of and the default budget is 1.4% difference.
Meaning the proposed is lower, correct?
Yes. believe that's a difference of around $360,000. And then next are the default budget revenues. Tax impacts. So again, that's a lot of information handed to you this evening. I'm sure you're gonna wanna take some time to look through all of that information and have a healthy discussion next Tuesday. Or we can answer any questions that you might have as we move through tonight.
On the tax default, on the back of the revenue page, which is kind of important, is this the year? I remember correctly, we sometimes alternate years as far as when the taxes jump for each tax.
Yes, so I'm glad you brought that up, because if you look on either one, but let's look at the default, because that's when you referred to it. If you look at the first thing to look at is the equalized education grant and the state property tax, because those formulas take into consideration valuations for each community. So that's part of the formula. And then if you look at the apportionment, on the back of the apportionment, the formula that we follow is the average of the prior year's average daily membership by community and the equalized valuation for the prior year. So you can see on the equalized valuation for Belmont, 2022 equalized valuation is $1.23 million. Okay? If you look at the tax rate sheet, the local share, the local school portion of the tax rate is being calculated on 1.297 million. So that's very close. So the equalized valuation in Belmont is very close to what they're using to set tax rates. Okay? If you look at Canterbury, the equalized valuation is 502 million, but they're using 370 million to set the tax rate. So this is one of those years that Canterbury is going to probably have a new valuation next year, which will get it closer to the equalized valuation. So at this point, it looks like the tax rate's going up 33%. In actuality, it probably will not, because they have to adjust the valuation for the town. And it happens like every 3 or 4 years.
But still, if I'm reading this correctly, if you just look at the default budget, just go with the default budget. If I live in Canterbury with a $250,000 home, I'm gonna see a $948 increase?
Based on the calculations with the current valuation, yes. And this is projecting no fund balance at the end of the year, because at this point, we wouldn't have that information. But again, this is something that it's about every 3 years it does this, because their valuation, when they're actually setting the tax rate, is a huge difference from what the equalized valuation is. And they add more students, so typically they're around 23% of the apportionment, and they're a little over 24% next year.
So, we have a lot of information. I wasn't really sure what the plan was as far as budget discussion tonight. I thought we could certainly have people ask questions, get some answers. I'm a little concerned about saying, well, just wait until our next meeting, which is December 5th. Because if I read the calendar correctly, do we want to have what we're proposing for the public hearing done by December 12th, the board meeting? We don't have any other meetings scheduled, I don't think, before then. I guess I wanna work my way backwards and figure out, when do we have to have this finalized for the public hearing? I thought it looked like the 12th.
Figured that one out.
I'm concerned we're running out of time.
So your public hearing is set for January 10th.
And I think we have a meeting right before that, but
On
we're
the
not,
9th, right,
but we're not gonna
correct.
finalize. That'd be too
Right, that
late.
would be too late to finalize the public hearing.
So you're correct.
So what I'm getting at is we've got like 2 weeks to finalize this, or we're gonna have to add an additional
On the
meeting.
19th of December.
And at this point, I'm inclined to add an additional meeting, because I don't think, I'm concerned about the amount. And it feels like we have a lot to talk about over the course of one budget meeting December 5th, and then a school board meeting December 12th. We don't have to, we don't have to add another meeting tonight, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware that we're really running out of time.
I felt like we met more last year, like it was like every week, and it didn't seem like that this year.
I mean, our calendar is based off last year though, isn't it? We may have added some meetings, which is definitely a possibility.
We get bumped out one week though, like when we were going to have the budgets, they weren't quite ready. We get them like a week
Yeah.
later, so we are
Yeah.
like a week behind basically.
Yep.
So I don't think we're gonna be ready by December 12th. I could be wrong.
Do we want to add a meeting in for the 19th now, just to be safe?
Sure.
I can't do the 19th.
Let's discuss on the 5th. Michelle will be here. In theory, everybody will be here. We'll have our calendars ready, what we should plan on. I think that week makes the most sense.
I will not be here the 5th or 12th, but I will make myself available for the week of the 19th.
You will, wait.
And I will provide all my,
You'll not be here either of those?
the next two meetings, correct. I will provide all my comments via.
And we would definitely want to know your availability, so I'll make sure Michelle or I reach out, because we'll definitely want you for that
I will send it to
third
you
meeting.
guys.
Are there questions now that we can get answered or request info about?
Has anybody heard any, since the tax rate was established and tax bills went out? Are there any huge, massive grumblings?
You talking about the tax bills we just got?
Yeah,
It's based on already approved budgets. Yeah.
well, correct, but there was a massive misunderstanding for 6 months leading up to it, that, oh my gosh, my assessed values went up, so now my taxes are gonna go up, and no matter how many times you explained it to people, they couldn't wrap their brains around the fact that your assessment goes up, your tax rate goes down, because of an established and approved budget.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have probably laid a sigh of relief, unless you lived on the water.
Yeah, saw that.
You're right, I mean, the
Personally, I'm glad there's
waterfront,
people
you know,
live
went
alongside
nuts.
the water.
I mean, my personal bill, I think, went down by $12.
Yeah, mine too. I was happy.
Or something, you know, very, very close to that. So, you know, to your point, you know, Sean, when we're looking at the hard numbers for what an increase would be, you know, for next year, you know, a $900 increase isn't near as bad to stomach when people just saw a fairly flat, you know, tax load at the end of this year after assessments.
I don't think people would view it that way.
Okay.
Besides that, you haven't added the town to it.
Right.
Yeah, when they were here, they said they were expecting a pretty big jump.
The town.
Healthy increase.
Yeah, so like in the town of Belmont, the assessments, did I hear that this is a gradual 4 or 5 year plan? That they were gonna be doing them multiple times?
No, they did.
They didn't wanna have one big jump.
You had one view of the assessment, when I called the tax
That sounds
collector,
right.
they had a different reason for doing it.
So the-
Regardless, I think the official statement's next year, if I remember right. Belmont.
So the town of Belmont voted in what, 16 or 17 to reassess every year?
Yeah.
Okay,
And so that's what takes away the huge roller coaster.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that feeds into the state evaluation. I was a little confused. I mean, we don't need to talk this meeting, but
Yeah.
when I called the tax assessor's office, I was a little confused if that actually fed into the state evaluations. I don't think it does.
so I just,
Anyway,
I'll throw out the, looking at the proposed budget, or the updated proposed budget, and then the default budget. When looking at the, I mean, as a taxpayer in town with a home, that's what I look at. I also wanna know how good the schools are, but I also look at what my taxes are gonna be. And I have a hard time with those amounts proposing a budget that's higher than the default budget. I'm not even happy with the increases in the default budget, but default budget's default. So that's what I'm looking at over the next couple of weeks. How we can trim to get at least below that default number.
Which is how much in your books?
What's that?
Which is how much you're
Wow.
looking at, I think the last meeting that I was at, you were talking about, or right around the $1 million mark.
Yeah. How much is the default of 1.4?
Which is 5.1%, and then it was 7%. Or it might have changed, I didn't look at the blue.
Debbie's punching the number right now. First glance today was around $360-something thousand. Difference between the default and proposed.
That's not,
It's $366,553.
So if you're looking to come in below the default, that's what we need, that's the number we're looking at.
What was the number again?
$366,553.
And how would that impact, I mean, that's gonna have a negligible impact on the number that you were discussing, what was a $250,000 home in Canterbury at a $900 increase, $366,000, reduction is gonna have a minimal impact on it.
I realize that.
366.5.
but the reality is, well, I would say your average person would say, well, there's proposers at default's lower. So there'd be a reasonable assumption the default's is gonna pass. I'm not saying the board should make that decision, but that would be the optics. Although you've seen these building patterns longer than I have, maybe that's wrong.
Any other thoughts tonight?
I don't know how much we can really cut.
What's that?
I don't know how much we can really cut.
Well, without having a
I mean,
conversation
I don't know.
about our
The damage was done
reduction
last year with
goals.
the teacher's contract. I mean, it's done. Now, when you're cutting, well, to her point, sinks, stuff like that, you're cutting that. I mean, trust me, I like saving money. At this point, I don't know. What are we gonna cut? I mean, that number right there is killing us. And it's gonna kill us for the next 3 years after this.
The transportation in here is the proposed
Correct.
contract.
Right.
The problem is what
I don't
leverage
want
do you
it.
have if it's only sole source? Not sure how you would drive
I mean,
that
we
down.
were able to negotiate last time.
Yeah,
There's a way to do it, but it's not popular.
well, 20% jump frankly outstrips inflation by a long shot, so.
Yeah.
I do think, just thinking ahead to the public hearings where Mark's on the board now, so we could have nobody in Belmont, I don't know. But the whole apportionment and how that impacts your tax, like, we have to be able to present that in a way, no offense to what you just said, but it's still very foggy. For the average person who's not involved in budgets, they just see us spending frivolously. They see that increase and they go, when's it end? And I want to be able to explain better why that is. You know, like if we had a 0% increase, they're still going to see a significant jump in their taxes.
Mhm.
I don't think people realize that. I could be wrong, but we have to be able to explain it in a way that's easier to understand for the very few that will probably hear it.
So if we had the same budget amount as this year, Belmont's. Flat, no increase at all. Belmont's local share would go up 8.67%, and Canterbury's would go up 25.15%.
That's because where we are in relation to the rest of the state.
It's a combination of things. So they use equalized valuation as part of the formula to determine what each community pays.
Yeah.
But then when I project the tax rates, the only thing I can project it on is what they're using right now for valuations in the towns. So I have to use the same valuation that Canterbury used to set the tax rate, which was the 360 million. That's probably not gonna be the same valuation next year. So if they ended up increasing their valuation, so it was closer to what the equalized valuation of the state was, if we added 300 million, then their tax rate would actually go down 30%, because you're dividing that apportionment over a greater valuation. So the rate per thousand would drop.
The rate-
Your individual assessment might go up
Yeah, I was
because the
gonna say,
value
the
of your
math
home.
still works, the
Right,
numbers go
yes,
up.
right.
But
But
at the
it
end of the day,
just-
the dollars go up, not, yeah.
Correct, right. So it just depends how you're spreading that out, and it's based on the valuation that they use in the formula.
So
But
Debbie,
you're
can I
talking,
ask-
but you're talking dollars, you're not talking
We'll get to the dollars.
mill rate, right? Mill rate was a game Belmont's playing. For
So
other reasons,
Debbie,
but-
what you just said,
Yep,
could we look at the default budget,
yep.
the tax rate page, where you say local school portion? If we had no increase at all, are you saying that 17.04% would be 8 point something?
Yeah, it's the same.
What's the number again?
So if we were looking at the tax rate on the revenue on the default budget would be the same thing. It's 27,475,65 would be the total budget. So you would be 8.67% increase in Belmont, 25.15% in Canterbury on the local share. So on that $250,000 home that you were talking about,
Yeah.
Belmont would go up $182.89, Canterbury would go up $729.02.
Yeah, Canterbury's gonna flip out.
But that's all in
Yeah.
projections, because that's not what the final total value is gonna be, and this is what we run into every 3 or 4 years. We sit here and we look at the projections, because I only have the valuation that they're using this year to set the tax rates. That's not gonna be the same valuation next year.
But so, we'll use Canterbury as an example because that's the higher number.
Mhm.
But if I'm in the crowd, not a crowd, let's say there were a crowd, and I'm looking at that $948 a year number, I'm going, that's huge. But if you were able to explain, or somebody was able to explain, if we were flat, like, you're still gonna see $729. I think that.
Based on your current year total valuation for the town, and your current, if your assessed value does not change.
Yeah,
So the way that I've heard stuff like that explained before in the past, with different town meetings, is they'll relate it to an appliance, basically. And they'll say the cost difference is a microwave. You know, so your default is going, you know, is gonna be this, the requested budget is this, and to the property owner that has a, you know, a $250,000 valuation, it's gonna be a dishwasher, you know,
Yeah.
or
I guess what I'm getting
microwave
at
oven or
is,
whatever
I
it
know
is.
people that look at this and say, you keep increasing the budget, which is why it's going up $948 this year. That is part of it, but that's not the whole story. And it's hard to explain that to people. They don't get that. They see that 948 is directly related to that 5% budget increase, or whatever
But you also have to look at the fact that the equalized education grant is going down $455,470. That's money that we get from the state right now that we're not getting next year.
So it's again, it's the loss of revenue
Right.
to offset your taxes.
Sure.
So there needs to be some
I see
type
the
of a
college
flyer or some type of information that doesn't go home with students.
To the whole
It's gotta wind up in a mailbox.
We do that every year.
Yeah.
That describes this stuff. And somehow relates it to something that people can wrap their brains around.
So real quick, those numbers on that page, that's the total dollars, that's not dollars per thousand, is, right?
Which one are you looking at? Because if you look at the tax rate.
I'm on the tax rate
All right,
default sheet.
so if you look at the tax rate, there's two parts.
The bottom table,
The
sorry.
very bottom table, it would be the total
Dollars.
dollars, yeah. The rate per thousand is estimated when you see the local school portion tax rate and the state education tax rate, that's the rate per thousand.
So, is there a conflict that gets us in trouble if we start trying to your point, help the voters understand? Some of this is, well, a lot of this is driven by decisions made in the legislature. So you hear one thing the legislature's saying, what they're doing to affect people's taxes, and then you see this result over here, and I wouldn't have put the two together without hearing this conversation. And so, me personally, as one individual, this would prompt me to start talking to our local representative and saying, do you realize what the heck you're doing? You make this great soundbite in the newspaper, but on the other hand, here's the impact at the local level, it stinks. That doesn't help, but at some point, if
That's
you're
why
gonna
you're
fix
also
this
have a
problem, it's
better
not a
under-
discussion in here.
But you have a better understanding
Yeah.
of that now, too.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So back on that question, that doesn't solve this year's problem, I get that. But to your point with a fire or whatever, is that something that's not legal to do to help people understand this effect?
I don't
No,
think
we-
there's any
It
legality.
may take a while to educate the voters, but,
So
Yeah.
each year we put out the
Yeah.
pamphlet that goes in the mail
yeah,
to everyone, so it's not going home with students, it's going directly to a mailbox.
yeah.
And to your point around, we can provide the information, but we
Right.
can't promote a specific vote
Correct.
in
Yeah,
one way or
okay,
another. That's
got it.
electioneering
Makes
basically,
sense.
that's against the law.
But some of us can start beating the bushes.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's information.
It's information.
Right.
As it should be.
Excuse me.
Anything else on the budget? I think we'll have a busy December 5th.
So on, if there's gonna be another meeting, is the board gonna make that decision December 5th? I only ask is, you know, me personally, there's openings, but I'm also planning holiday events. Not that you have to plan around me, but I'm probably not the only one in this room that's kind of thinking
Well-
about the holidays.
I mean, Randy won't be able to schedule while we meet, so if we want to do it now, we can do it now. We got time. I'll pass it on to Michelle, make sure that works.
Pencil in as a tentative meeting, and then if you feel that you'll need it on the 12th,
Yeah.
then just cancel the meeting, but I think it'd be good to get on people's calendars.
My evenings are wide open that week.
Your what?
Evenings are wide open that week.
Avoiding the 19th, and we're going to week 4.
Here, one of the ones before pencil meeting was what I
Oh,
understood.
okay.
Yeah, so we'd be looking at the week of the 18th. We can't do Tuesday. So we
Jill
should
said
next-
Jill
Jill
said
can't make
do
it.
Tuesday.
I can't do the 20th.
I'm fine for the 19th.
What's that?
I'm fine for the 19th.
I'll make anything work.
Can we do Monday, the 18th? Any conflicts with Monday, the 18th?
No, actually, I'm good. I'm surprised. I don't know anything right now, so.
So maybe we can tentatively plan on that if we need it. I'll let Michelle know just in case there's a conflict for her.
These would be at CES?
Let's, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so all meetings, 5th, 12th, and then that week would all be at CES. And then it'd be the regular 6 o'clock, I think. All right, if nothing else, we will move.
Just to clarify, so we still have one 12-5 and 12-12?
Yeah. Thank you for coming out.
Oh, it's fine. All right. Next up, we have internal policy. We have 3 policies up for action tonight.
The only change that I actually caught between the first reading and the second reading is on EBBD. The first reading, it was just titled Indoor Air Quality. So if you look at what's in your packet, I added the words and water quality to the title, because we added those lines 19 through 22. So the policy is not specific to just indoor air quality, so I added and water quality, so that the title reflects what we're referring to in the policy itself.
We don't have a separate water one.
That's the only change from the first reading. better now.
So there are no issues and no concerns. We could do all these in one motion as well.
You want to do it, Jeff? You can do it, I've been doing them all.
Make a motion to accept all the policies that have been changed or revised.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public communication and correspondence?
Don't everybody speak once?
What's that?
So don't everybody speak once?
And non-public, we just have minutes. We can approve those in public, or there's nothing there.
Make a motion to accept the non-public minutes.
Second.
Further discussion? Any other edits? All right. All those in favor of the motion, you do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are accepted.
Abstain.
And one chair. Aye.
Make a
Anything
motion to
else?
adjourn.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. All right. Nice.